Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana 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 Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki Sri Radha Giridhari ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shudra Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhai Charana Ravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shudra Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai Ananta Goti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai ISKCON Foundacharya BBT Foundacharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Samveda Bhakti ki Jai Gaur Premanandi all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories ceasing Guru and Sri Gauranga. Srimad Bhagavatam Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Vishesha Sanyavadi Pasyatadis So this morning we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 15, beginning with text 9, 10, 11, I think it's 12 and 15 has the purport, so we'll speak there. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shuka Vacha Evam Asvasito Raja Chittaketur Dvijoktibihi Vimrija Panina Vaktram Adi Mlanam Abhasata Abhashata Sisuko Vacha Evam Advasito Raja Chitraketur Dvijoktibihi Vimrija Panina Vaktram Adhimlanam Abhashata Sisuko Vacha Evam Asvasito Raja Chittaketur Dvijoktibihi Vimrija Panina Vaktram Adimlanam Abhashata. Anyone like to chant? Lady, singular. Sisuko Vaja Evam Avasito Raja Chittaketur Dvijoktibihi Vimrija Pranina Vaktam Adimlanam Abhakshata. Anyone online? Chance? Prabhu from Portugal still with us? Sometimes? Okay. Sri Shuka Vacha. Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Evam, thus, Avasita, being enlightened or giving hope. Raja, the king, Chitraketu, Dvija Uktibihi, by the instructions of the great Brahmanas, Narada and Angira Rishi. Vimrija, wiping off. Panina, by the hand. Bhaktram, his face, Adimlanam, shriveled due to lamentation. Abhashata, spoke intelligently. Translation, Sri Shukadev Goswami continued, thus enlightened by the instructions of Narada and Angira, King Chitraketu became hopeful with knowledge. Wiping his shriveled face with his hand, the king began to speak. Text 10. Let me just read the translations? Okay. King Chitraketu said, you have both come here dressed like avadutas, liberated persons, just to cover your identities. But I see that of all men, you are the most elevated in awareness. You know everything as it is. Therefore, you are the greatest of all great personalities. Text 11. Brahmanas who are exalted to the position of Vaishnavas, the most dear servants of Krishna, sometimes dress like madmen. Just to benefit materialists like us, who are always attached to sense gratification, and just to dissipate our ignorance, these Vaishnavas wander on the surface of the globe according to their desire. Texts 12 through 15. Translation. O great souls, I have heard that among the great and perfect persons wandering the surface of the earth to instruct knowledge to people covered by ignorance, such ignorance are Sanat Kumara, Narada, Ribu, Angira, Devala, Asita, Apantaratma, Vyasadev, Markandeya, Gautama, Vashishta, Bhagavan Parashurama, Kapila, Shukadev, Durvasa, Jagyavoka, Jatukarna, and Aruni. Others are Ramasha, Chaivana, Dattatreya, Asuri, Pantanjali, the great sage Domya, who is like the head of the Vedas, the sage Panchashika, Hiranyanabha, Koshalya, Shutadev, and Ritvaja. You must certainly be among them. And he is. They are. They're in the list, right? Did you hear their names? Okay, so purport. The word Jnana-hetava is very significant because great personalities like those listed in these verses wander on the surface of the globe not to mislead the populace but to distribute real knowledge. Without this knowledge, human life is wasted. The human form of life is meant for realization of one's relationship with Krishna or God. One who lacks this knowledge is categorized among the animals. The Lord himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 15th verse, Namam Duskatina Mudha Prapajante Naradama Maya Pritagyana Asuram Bhavamasritaha. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Ignorance is the bodily conception of life. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tadatuke seeva gokara. Bhagavatam 1084:13. Practically everyone throughout the universe, especially on this planet, Burloka, thinks that there is no separate existence of the body and soul and therefore no need of self-realization. But that is not a fact. Therefore, all the Brahmanas listed here, being devotees, travel all over the world to awaken Krishna consciousness in the hearts of such foolish materialists. The acharyas mentioned in these verses are described in the Mahabharata. The word Panchashika is also important, one who is liberated from the conceptions of Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya, and who is perfectly aware of the subtle coverings of the soul is called Panchashika. According to the statements of Mahabharata, Shanti Parva, chapters 218-219, an acharya named Panchashika took birth in the family of Maharaj Janaka, the ruler of Mathila. The Shankya philosophers accept Panchashikacharya as one of them. Real knowledge pertains to the living entity dwelling within the body. Unfortunately, because of ignorance, the living entity identifies himself with the body and therefore feels pleasure and pain. Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunminitam Dena Taismai Sri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakti Varinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripasindubheva patidanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So by your good wishes, I'll try to say a few things, and if we can open that door, it would let some fresh air in here, which is essential for assimilation of transcendental knowledge when you're tired. Right? So, one thing is, I'll go back to the verse we started with, number 9. It's significant there that Chittaketu Maharaj had some qualification. And it says here that abhasata, he spoke intelligently. In other words, completely devastated by what had happened in the palace. Remember what happened in the palace, Govardhan? What happened in the palace?
They poisoned the little child.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, talk about waiting for a child to appear. He had so many wives, nothing, and finally he got this blessing. Anyways, so it says here that his Bimnija Panina Vaktram Adi Mlanam, that he was wiping off from his face was shriveled due to lamentation. That's pretty bad when your whole face is shriveled up due to lamentation. But he heard a little bit. They came and spoke just a little bit. It was just enough for the light to go off. And so he had some qualification because, what is this? I don't know what the Sanskrit is. Do you know the Sanskrit? If you give a fool good instruction, he gets upset. Like that, yeah. Fool mukanam, you give him upadesh, good instruction, gets all upset. Who are you to tell me? Right? So they don't want to hear it. No one wants to hear even good instruction. That's just natural. But Chittaketu's qualification was, all of a sudden, due to his piety and past devotional service and spiritual activities, a light went off, and he could understand this is an opportunity here. These are not ordinary personalities, and that's what he's saying here. He can immediately identify them. Did I say off? Man, I keep saying off. What is that? Yes, I'm like 180 degrees. The light went on. The darkness went off. Okay. I'm sorry about that, Prabhu. It's just testing you. I just want to see if Dravida was with me. That's just a test. It was all planned. I'll ask this question now before we get into the, okay? Just, what does it mean that dress like madmen? Does that give us carte blanche to dress like madmen? What does that mean that devotees of the Lord sometimes dress like madmen? He mentions this twice. What's your understanding of this, Balaram? I mean, just like we talk about Durvasa being a bad dresser or no clothes, or what does that mean? Sometimes devotees are there in society and they're dressed like madmen or appear like madmen. Yeah, Utmata Linganai, who dress as if madmen. That's 11. I mean, I can understand they don't advertise themselves. Right.
It's different times have different say codes of dressing and different, like our Bhajanarayan Swami, he likes to mention that before in previous ages, if you wear torn clothing or this or that, or you need to be so great saintly person and detached or something, but now you wear some of the what's wrong with this person, they can't present themselves well, or so. Yes. So therefore Prabhupada would say, right, first dress, then address.
Okay.
So,
Okay. There we go.
so different times have different codes, right?
Okay. So you cannot dress like madmen when you go out, or mad women. Okay. Don't do that. It's not this day and age. Okay.
Brahmacharis don't cut their nails, I think, in the Bhagavatam or something. They say
Well, they wear bark.
they bark or
Like that. So it's like you said, it's previous age. Okay. So Jnana Hetava is significant, Prabhupada says, because it means that full of knowledge, and making the point that not just Brahmins but Vaishnavas have a soft heart, and they're very, very compassionate, and therefore they want to distribute real knowledge to human society, and people are suffering due to ignorance. People suffer due to ignorance. And the big suffering is our absorption in the bodily concept of life. That's the Maha illusion. And until that is dissipated, there'll always be some kind of suffering. Got a lot to talk about. So I'll just stick to my list here instead of going off on tangents. But Prabhupada says here, first he quotes the verse from Bhagavad Gita, because he's saying here that human form of life is meant for self-realization, and if you're not interested in self-realization, then more or less we're just like an animal. We're just like animals. What's the difference, right? Animals eat, sleep, mate, and defend, and if all we do is eat, sleep, mate, and defend, it may be more sophisticated, but that's all we're doing. So really there isn't any difference. And sometimes people even argue, man is just another animal, so what's the problem, right? This one lecture is in Paris, morning walk, and they're talking about that, about meat eating. You know, that what's the problem? We're animals. You know, we eat what we want to eat, and you know, do what we want to do. What's the problem? And Prabhupada said, yes, okay, that's true. But human life isn't supposed to be like that. That's the point. We're supposed to rise above it. That's the call of the human form of life. Atato Brahma Gigyasa. That's where it turns, like that. And people don't understand that. So Prabhupada's saying here, this namam diskutina mudha prabhajante naradhama maya pritagyana asuran bhavamasrita. In Bhagavad Gita, he's explained there's actually 4 kinds of people who just won't surrender to Krishna. And we were talking about Maharaj Chittaketu, that he immediately the light went on. Light went on, because he was not in this category. He's not in this category. But people who are, the first one is a mudha, that's grossly foolish. Now, I guess I can open up the purport, but that would take about 20 minutes to read. It's a lengthy purport, 7:15, where Prabhupada is describing each of these classifications of human non-humans, like that. Dvipadupasu. So one's the mudha, they're just foolish. And then you got this naradama, which means those who are advanced, you could say, in culture, but it's the culture of nescience. You know, the Prabhupada talks about the word kritina, which means meritorious or active, but it's duskritina, which means it's all bad. They're very active, but it's all bad results. Sometimes the example is given of monkeys. Prabhupada said, whenever a monkey's about, everyone's worried. Right? Because they're very active, but they're going to do something crazy. Now Mahabharat's in the kitchen, so I'm going to tell the story that his wife told. You know the story? Remember the story? Ladali, when she first went to India with Sandamani many years ago, it was her first time in Vrindavan. Oh, it's a spiritual world. Everyone's spiritual. Everything's spiritual, right? So they were in the room. I don't know where the room was. One of the ashrams or something like that, ground floor. And then some monkeys kind of just wandered into her room. And she thought, oh, the monkeys of Vrindavan. And then the monkeys started tearing up all of her luggage and throwing clothes all over the place and having a party. And Sandamani came in and screamed and yelled and scared him out the door. So she thought, oh, the monkeys of Vrindavan, just like in the Krishna book. And all of a sudden, just everything was all over the place. They're throwing stuff and, you know. So she got an education there about Vrindavan real quick. But the point is, whenever there's a monkey, very active, but what's the result? Catastrophe, right? You ever run into monkeys when you're in Vrindavan? Do they ever do anything to you? Take your glasses, jump on you? Huh? You have a stick, so you're smart. Okay. So Naradama means very active, but all their actions are bad. Naradama, down. Nara is human being. It's a very, very low class of people. Very active. In fact, they're glorified, right? Oh, they've achieved so many, the people, they've achieved so many things. Look at what they've done in the world today. And then other people say, yeah, look what they've done. Look at the mess we're in. But those are the Naradamas. And then you have the Maya Pitagyana. These are very so-called intelligent people, but it's mundane intelligence and it's misdirected. So even though they may have so many degrees in so-called learning or philosophers, and Prabhupada even says this refers to commentators on the Bhagavad Gita. Their knowledge is stolen, so whatever they say is nonsense. It is not to Krishna. It is within Krishna, right? Verse like that. So many things that people say. And the last one is the asuram bhavam. Those are actually just demoniac. Due to so many sinful activities, they're demons. They're out and out enemies of the Lord. So these are the four classifications of Dvipadupasus. And that's what who we're preaching to. That's who we're preaching to. So it's a very nice verse here. Krishna's just categorizing everything. And this bodily concept of life, Prabhupada goes on to say, is this yasyatma buddhi kunape to dhatu ke. This, and he says that three things here. There's a nice commentary actually, but let me just see if I can pull this up. One who identifies himself as the inert body composed of three things. What are those three things? Yes, that's what it says right here. Mucus, bile, and air. Who assumes his wife and family, or spouse, who goes both ways, are permanently his own. Who thinks an earthen image or the land of his birth is worshipable, or who sees a place of pilgrimage as merely the water there, but who never identifies himself with, feels kinship with, worships or even visits those who are wise in spiritual truth. Such a person is no better than a cow or an ass. Saeva Gokara. So it's just saying here, the first thing is this yasyatma buddhi. Buddhi means the idea that this kunape, corpse-like body, which is made of tridhatuke. You just hear that? That's the mucus part. Okay, mucus, bile, and air. That's what the body is. It's a bag, and there's all these things inside, and that's me. So one who thinks like that, or the things that family members and possessions are mine, and they're mine, like that. Or the land of this Boma Ijadi, many times it's translated as our place of birth, where we reside, or a place of birth. This earthen images is referring to demigod worship. But mostly it says Boma Ijadi means our place of birth. I'm an American, I'm an Indian, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all these different things. That's who I am. And don't mess with Texas, right? You ever seen that bumper sticker? Don't mess with Texas. Texans are pretty proud, right? Everyone's pretty proud, but Texans are pretty proud. Don't mess with Texas, like that. That's so funny. We were driving Mahabharata yesterday. We went to Mexico to the dentist, and it's pointing out this. You know, it's amazing. You come across the border, they have billboards bigger than anything else I've ever seen. There must be billboards from Satya Yuga at the border, right? They're so gigantic. And there's one big billboard, and Vaikuntha was with us, and on one side was a man with a bald head, and the other side was a man with it was starting to grow in. And it said, now you can become a badass. Can you grow your hair out? Badass. I said, Mahabharata, you want to become a badass? Like that? Like that you have hair and you're very, you're proud and you're like that, a badass. And that was the ad. Like that. You get your hair, then you're a badass. Like that. So proud, confrontational, right? You're a bad person. You get hair on. You're no longer this funny person with no hair. So anyways, this Bhomi Jadi. And people fight, don't they? Nationality, it's a new thing. Nationalism, 1700s, 1800s, that's where it actually really started. But people would fight. Of course, people fought before for kingdoms and so on. But, people will fight. They'll fight like anything. They'll fight over nationalities. They'll fight over racial fights. They'll fight over soccer teams, right? I don't know if they still have it, but I know in England they had to like calm everything down. People had huge violent fights after the game, winning and losing. It became a big thing, violent thing. So, and it says here, one who thinks a holy place is just a place to bathe in the water, go to Lloyd Bazaar, pick up a few things like that. But actually it's to associate with those of spiritual truth and get spiritual wisdom. So this is different classifications also for those who are in ignorance that we think I'm this body. And Prabhupada says here, practically everyone throughout the universe, especially on this planet, Burloka, thinks that there is no separate existence of the body and soul. That is so deep, isn't it? You talk to people, it's just so deep. So very, very, very deep. And there's a conversation. Hridayananda Maharaj is in Mexico City, and they're translating it, but there's a man and a woman there, and I don't know if this was a woman who was famous or whatever, but she was saying she believed she was a spirit soul, but a woman soul. The whole thing is, you're spirit soul, you're not a man or woman or black or white or Mexican or American, but she's saying, I believe in so, but I'm a woman soul. So it goes so, and she was interested in spiritual life. It goes so deep that we're thinking the soul is man or woman or this or that. So it's just, there's that one quote, everyone in this material world is self-realized that they are their body. Right? We're self-realized we're our body. It is, the false ego is so subtle and so all-pervasive and deep that we immediately identify with the body. We are in a difficult situation here. Like that. There's that famous line in the movie. Remember that? Apollo 13. Houston, we have a problem. Like that. So I think I mentioned in the class, I actually flew through Houston for a wedding or something like that, and I saw this young teenager with a sweatshirt, and it said, Houston, I've got a lot of problems. Like that. So the point is, we've got a problem here. We've got a really big problem. Our bodily concept of life is so deeply rooted. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the last thing here, Prabhupada's referring to this a liberated person is free from these four. The last one, this Anandamaya, is actually referring to Krishna consciousness. But these 4 levels of illusion, they're actually, one place they're considered like sheaths. They envelop the conditioned soul's consciousness. And that's referred to, it comes up in the Krishna book, in the prayers of the personified Vedas. And if I can indulge you a little bit, I'll just read a little bit of that, okay? Because it's a definition Prabhupada's giving here in the purport of what it means to be. So it says here, within the body, there are 5 different departments of existence, known as Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and at last Anandamaya. In the beginning of life, every living entity is food conscious. And it continues. Okay? A child or an animal is satisfied only by getting nice food. In this state of consciousness in which the goal is to eat sumptuously is called Annamaya. Anna means food. After this, one lives in the consciousness of being alive. If one can continue his life without being attacked or destroyed, one thinks himself happy. This stage is called Pranamaya, or consciousness of one's existence. After this stage, when one is situated in the mental platform, his consciousness is called Manomaya. The materialistic civilization is primarily situated in these 3 stages: Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Manomaya. The first concern against being annihilated, the first concern of civilized persons is economic development. The next concern is defense against being annihilated. And the next consciousness is mental speculation or the philosophical approach to the values of life. If by the evolutionary process of philosophical life one happens to reach the platform of intellectual life and understands that he is not this material body but a spirit soul, he is situated in Vijnanamaya stage. Then, It's a big then. Then by evolution in spiritual life, he comes to the understanding of the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Soul. When one develops his relationship with him and executes devotional service, that stage of life is called Krishna consciousness. The Ananda Maya stage. Ananda Maya is the blissful life of knowledge in eternity. So these are the different stages of consciousness. It's a wonderful explanation. So it's saying that most 99.9% of all of us, even in the human form of life, we're absorbed in Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya. Sometimes there's a little Vigyan Maya, a little philosophy. Not so much these days. Philosophy, that word actually means the love of the truth. That's what it means. Philosophy means the love of truth. So, but Anandamaya is the highest stage when one revives one's divine consciousness, and there's Ananda, or bliss, or happiness. So, that's what's brought up here, and it's already 8:28. I'm going to read one last thing, okay? Not going to go off in tangents. I want to read last one thing because we're describing here about like I said earlier, we got a problem. We all have a problem. Every jiva in this material world has got a big problem. If we were actually aware of how big this problem is, we'd probably faint. We'd scream and yell and run out the door. Like that. It is big. It is so big. You know? So Krishna helps cover the magnitude of our problem so we can function. That's like some people say, when you go to your next life, why do you forget? Because if you remembered everything, you couldn't function. Yeah, I mean, people get it just from one incident in this lifetime. I can imagine if you remembered all the times you were devoured alive, and that happens a lot below the human form of life, and all the things you went through. So Krishna very kindly, Shmitirgyanam apohanam cha, he makes us forget these things because it's too much to handle. And he, even in the devotional service when we're purifying our hearts, he doesn't expose all of the dirt because we'd give up. Oh my goodness. Just like, sometimes you go into the kitchen, there's a lot of pots in there, right? Can you imagine you went in the kitchen and the whole kitchen was full of pots? Like to the back wall, all the way to the door. And they said, hey, Vijamani Prabhu, Balaram, can you, or Sal, can you go in there and clean a few pots? And you open the door. You open the white door here, and all these pots fell out. And you couldn't even get into the kitchen. There were so many pots. I'm just saying, a lot of pots. I mean, sometimes it's, well, that's a lot of pots. But when the whole kitchen was full of pots, it's like, oh no, it's too much. And you probably close the door, go upstairs, and either go to sleep or chant some rounds or something. It's like, okay. Okay. So, a little temple drama commentary here in Bhagavatam class. So here it is. The point being, I'll read the translations. This is a song Srila Prabhupada sung many times, one of his favorite songs, but it brings it home. I guess that's that expression. It brings it home. We're talking about, all these people are Maya and they don't understand. They're not interested in Krishna consciousness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote one song about taking the position of the fallen conditioned soul and everything he's going through and all of his illusions and so on. And at the end, praying for help. So let me just read the translation to this, and then we can open up for discussion. This is called Anadi Karma Pale. And that translates as the reactions of beginningless karma. So, due to my past fruitive activities, I have fallen into this great ocean of nescience, and I do not find any means of getting out. Day and night my heart burns from the poison of these worldly activities, and so my mind is not at all satisfied. I am always making hundreds and thousands of plans to become happy, but all these plans give me pain 24 hours a day. Indeed, I am being dashed again and again by the waves of the ocean of materialism. In addition, there are many thieves and rogues, of whom 6 are prominent: lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, and madness. They are causing me great fear, and in this way my life is coming to an end. So they're called thieves. What are they stealing? And? Yes, are Krishna conscious. They're stealing it. And then thuggy. Is that Hindi? Thuggy? Thuggy? I think it's in here. No, it's important. Thagi. Cheaters are thugs. This word thug actually has its root in Hindi or Sanskrit. Thuggy means thugs. So it says here, the two thugs, thugs are, they wanted me to thug, okay? The two thugs of mental speculation and fruitive activity have cheated me, misled me, and finally thrown me into the ocean of misery. Right? A thug grabs you, turns you upside down, shakes all the money out of your pocket, beats you up, and then throws you. Like that. Under the circumstances, my dear Krishna, O ocean of mercy, you are my only friend. I have no strength to get out of this ocean of nescience, so I pray to your lotus feet that you will be kind, and by your strength lift me out of this ocean of suffering. Kindly lift up this fallen servant of yours and fix me as one of the particles of dust at your lotus feet. Please give this Bhakti Vinod shelter at your lotus feet. I am your eternal servant, but some or other I have forgot you and am now fallen into this entangling network of Maya. Kindly save me. So Chitraketu Maharaj, the light went on, and he's in this situation. He understands, this is horrible, what's happened. And there's all this illusion. And Manarda Muni and Angira Rishi, you've kindly come, please enlighten me. Please save me. Like that. So, any questions or comments on any of the points brought up in the class or otherwise? And I'll do my best never to say the lights went off, unless I'm talking about the other kind of people where the light does go off. Anything? Everyone satisfied and happy? All excited about chanting 25 rounds today?
One interesting thing is that he has this list and he doesn't really know who they are.
He's heard them.
He's heard of them. So he gives a list and they were in the list. But, it's, you just think, in so many cases Narada Muni appears and it's Narada Muni, people recognize. But he knows all these others, but he can't recognize him, which I guess is a symptom of the fact that one of the reasons why he's kind of was covered, because he didn't really have direct experience. But it mentions earlier, as you may recall, how everything was going very nicely in his kingdom. And then Prabhupada gives the example of Yudhishthira and others. So he's already kind of a Vaishnav, but he's just totally hung up on having this child. And so they come kind of as doctors, to excise this disease, and he becomes very receptive because of the whole experience that he has. And the pièce de resistance is when they bring the child back to life and he preaches to him, and that's a very interesting pastime.
Okay. Well, you can imagine, though, it's not that people saw everyone, and you didn't have pictures back then. Hey, I saw your picture in Prabhupada's book. It wasn't like that. Are you leaving now? Can they give you some prasadam later on to break your fast? Would you like them to?
I'm traveling. I'm fasting today.
Do you want a little container or something? You should take even one or two pieces of something.
Yeah.
What do you think? Should you just wait one more? They'll just give you. You got to have something for later on. You've got to get it Hari's prasadam. But they don't have pictures. I remember seeing this article about like Billy the Kid or something like that. They didn't have pictures back then. Like now they have the FBI 10 most wanted. Do they still hang on? I've never seen that in post office, but in the old days in post office, you see that, 10 most wanted. I guess because of the internet and television. But that's where you let's have these posters, all these thugs looking pretty gnarly, the 10 most wanted by the FBI. Every post office would have a poster there showing you in case you happen to see them. But like Billy the Kid, they had a hard time catching these outlaws in the West because no one knew what they looked like. They just come into town and rob another bank. Do you know that? I don't know what Billy Kid looks like. Some boy walked into the bank and shot it up and took all the money. They didn't know. Just everyone looks the same. They got a cowboy hat on and guns and spurs and, how do you know? So in the same thing, you hear about these different sages, but unless they're kind enough to visit your kingdom and bless you and so on, you didn't know, but you heard about them. So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Ekadasi Brata Ki Jai. Thank you.